Welcome on our regularly scheduled live stream Thursday nights. And our topic today will be about what this channel is all about, because people think I'm just here to spread fear and somehow I profit from that fear or something along those lines. So anyway, we'll talk about that. And just to reiterate the format here, I talk for half an hour on a given topic, and then we can deviate or continue depending on the mood and talk about something else or the same topic. So let me just get this broadcast situated here. If you can just hold on a second. Got to make sure that you're all live on all channels. So I'm not yet seeing the traffic, so hold on a second while I do that. Somebody says, "Oh, why don't you have this figured out?" And it's never really like that because it's like third parties. So I'm always dependent on what's going to happen on the internet here and see how the signal is at this very moment. Okay, hold on. I just haven't seen the traffic yet on YouTube. I can see Rumble, but nothing on YouTube yet. Hold on a second here. Just takes a few clicks. So and that gets people in here as well. So here we go. I think we're all set. There we go. Okay. So we are all set. I think we are live. We have the signal. Okay. Thank you for sticking with that. And as always, that's the pain in the butt here when it comes to live streaming, is I can't control that. So, and the more platforms I do, the more complicated it gets. So anyway, talking to friends today, and I always get this feeling that, oh my gosh, it's so doom and gloom, so much negativity in, all the issues in the world and all the fact that we're controlled. And I see comments, even on my videos saying like, oh my gosh, we're so zucked, world is ending kind of comments, and it's so depressing, and stuff like that. So that's what I want to make sure we understand each other here, because that is not how I feel. Do I look like I'm depressed doing this? And you might say, well, how can he possibly not be depressed after, talking about all this technology used against us, and now we're talking about GPT-4, ChatGPT, and all this being used to control the world, and whatever else you have in mind in your phones, and Google, and the government, and how even our social media is controlled. And now they're going to go with CDBC, central bank, CBDC, central bank digital currencies, and how they're going to see everything we do, and how it's all this controlling stuff. And my goodness, if you actually don't watch my channel completely and understand some of the points I make here, you would really get depressed. And that's, I alternate my content between stating the problems and then telling you what the solutions are. Now, because this is a weekly broadcast and weekly videos, obviously, I have to keep changing the focus in every week, and then you got to wait a week to see what else is new. And often if you are new, like there were some, apparently I got some press and some new platform, and a lot of new people are just seeing my content for the first time, and they've never really heard of me before, and they have so many questions. I believe it's from the Solari report, and they had so many questions because I did an interview with the Solari report, and they had so many questions, and they just heard about me for the first time, and they're cramming all this. And it's like, I'm so depressed, I got all this to figure out, and I can't figure this out, and I don't know where to start. It'll take me years to figure this out, and so on. Okay, well, let's start first with the very, very basics here. I'm not doing this to waste your time and just say we got so many problems that we can't solve and that the world is falling apart and so on. That is not what I say to you. I just want to make that clear. I don't say that. And I actually do believe that. I'm absolutely not depressed. I feel empowered. And that's the word I want to make sure that you, I didn't want to put that in the title because I want to make sure I tell you that. This channel empowers you. This is not about feeling depressed or feeling out of control. This channel is about empowerment because I've been finding solutions to the problem. Third parties trying to control us in some way. And if anything, the depression is that we can't convince that many people to think the way we do. But for those who actually think properly, based on what I teach here, then you actually do have a solution, and then you actually are gonna feel empowered, and there's some realizations that's gonna happen if you follow some of what I say, and you're gonna feel at peace, and you're gonna feel really good, and you're not gonna care anymore about, once you're in control. That is, you have to be in control first. Once you feel like you're in control, you're gonna feel like, hey, I'm invulnerable. Well, you're not, but we can eliminate up to 80% of the vulnerability pretty easily, and then the rest is more time consuming. But just to prove the point here, so AI is now involved with us, right? And I told you the fear of, what could GPT-4, the next version of ChatGPT, what could GPT-4 do if it has so much knowledge? And apparently GPT-4 has 100 times the knowledge of ChatGPT when that becomes available to most of us. And, I asked ChatGPT questions about me, and it basically made things up. So, I don't know how it makes things up, but it's the information itself is false, which is fine, but the level of information, fortunately, is not false. I mean, it's at the level of what I've done in my life. It's just not the right institutions and companies mentioned, but that's fine. That's what we want. So it means that I was able to control ChatGPT. ChatGPT did not control me. I was able to control ChatGPT. And the reason I am able to do that is because I have control of my data. And as many of you know, I'm attacked extremely frequently here on social media. There are a lot of people that work for some of the companies that I speak against, and I'm sure they're not going to appreciate what I say against their company since they're making money off their company. I'm not making money off their company, so I don't have to care. But some of them are, and some of them don't state that. They'll just go attack me in here. Some have some alternate product that they push and that I don't push. Some believe in what they say that I don't believe, and they don't like that. And, it's like, who cares? It's like that's the world. I'm not going to worry about who likes me or does not like me or whatever, because it doesn't really matter. The point is that even with all this attacks, I'm not really being attacked. I feel like I'm in control. Now, some of you may be more vulnerable to this. You can't just, in fact, somebody like Elon Musk, if he didn't have money, he would be more subject to attack because he didn't really take the precautions of privacy like I have. And I was thinking so far ahead that it's benefiting me now. I just to tell you my understanding of the internet, I was already taking precautions as early as the 90s when the internet first started. I actually was saying, all email on in the world is subject to somebody looking at it. So I better be careful what I put in email, and I was since the 90s. Have you done that? I doubt that. But that's an empowerment thing when I know, you know what? I better control what I say in social media. If I'm going to use a name, I better make sure that they can't connect that to me. And because I'm a techie, I'm on all the uh, forums of the day back in the 90s and all the way to social media. As you know, I'm very busy here on social media, but in a controlled way. I mean, it's always controlled, and that's the empowerment. So my point here, and we don't need to belabor the details here, but just get to the point is that there are weaknesses in the way we are controlled and attacked and surveilled. There are weaknesses. They're not able, if you take the proper precautions. Now, if you're a complete NPC, then you're pretty much zucked. There's nothing you can do. But if you're not behaving like the typical millennial, the way the typical millennial has acted since Snapchat came around in, trying to remember, 2008, I think. Okay, that's when the high school kids started using Snapchat for sexting, and that became the new big thing back in 2008. I remember that very, very clearly, because that's when Facebook started to do their stuff and started to think about doing evil things, which they executed when they went public. So by 2012, they're already in the deep areas of surveillance, and then Snowden didn't come around till 2013. But I already knew, and I already was planning my life in a way that was protective of my data. So the same way you are being given tips here in my channel, and I'm telling you things that you need to understand. And sometimes there's no time to explain to you in every video what the details are, but the fact of the matter is that even the few things that I say may actually have a significant effect. Now, things have changed. What the threats were in 2012 are not the same threats today. In 2012, the biggest threat was probably Facebook. Facebook is still a huge threat today, but a lot of people are not on Facebook. So that's changed a little bit. The biggest threat today is the phone. I just want to make this clear, and why it's a threat is explained in so many videos, and if you actually understand this, then you start to say, what happens when you don't have a normie phone? What happens? Well, I'm going to tell you, because this is actually the most basic thing that happens. What happens is you don't realize this because of I don't even know why these cybersecurity experts who are not experts, why they don't talk about this. I mean, this is plain stuff. It's pretty obvious that we are tracked on the internet by the connection between devices. It's called cross-device tracking. So if you have a phone, the phone is connected to your Google account. It's connected to everything you do on the internet with a Google ID. This Google ID is the glue that connects every piece of surveillance that happens to you. Probably the biggest form of surveillance is with this Google ID. When you go to websites, this Google ID is, it's tracked when you go to a site that has Google Analytics, which is pretty much, 99.99% of all websites will have Google Analytics in it. And if you have Google Analytics recognizes your Google ID and stores that and references that, and don't care what Google says about, oh, we don't track that, and nonsense. Of course they do. And actually there was hold on a second here. I'm getting a message here about the signal. Okay, it looks okay. There was some press too about Google saying we're gonna drop the tracking using browser fingerprinting, and we're gonna track you in a different way called Flock. They dumped Flock. I still talk about Flock, but they're now calling it Topics. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It means the same thing. You are being tracked. All these topics and flock businesses is what third parties can see. It doesn't change what Google can see. Google can track you completely. Now, what happens here, and this is really the key, is when you have a phone that is not a normie phone, meaning a Google phone or a Linux phone, you zucking disappear. You zucking disappear. They cannot make a correct connection between cross-device tracking, what you do in the browser, what you do on your phone with your locations and sensors and whatever else you do. They cannot do it. You disappear. I don't know how much stronger I can say this, but this is so obvious. When you have a Google phone, you disappear from the grid. In Google's eyes, you don't have a phone. Do you understand the significance of that? I mean, that is what happened in the last few years, is that all of the surveillance has been focused on the phone. This happened the last 3, 4, 5 years now, and more heavily in the last 3 years. This is applicable to iPhones. iPhones even worse now in the last 2 years. But all the surveillance has been focused on the phone. Absolutely intense surveillance focused on the phone. And then you suddenly say, I'm going to go de-Google. And you may not even understand that. You know, what is happening when I de-Google? And the real thing that you need to understand is there is no Google ID on a de-Google phone, and there is no Google apps that track us. All the Google system apps that track you are in a standard phone. It's even on an iPhone. But on a Google phone, you cannot load anything Google, so that there is nothing. There's no evidence of anything. In fact, as far as Google is concerned, you use a flip phone because it doesn't appear like you use any kind of standard phone. They can't see that. If you're interfacing with them on a device, they think you're on a zucking computer. They don't know you're on a phone. And when they are helpless with identifying you and what you do, because it's like their eyes are blinded. And it's some of you are saying, well, I'm kind of politically active. I speak against various things, and it's like, and yet you don't change your habits. You're still using your normal phone, and you're going to be targeted, as they already targeted people in this category. And basically the Google phone makes you disappear. That is like number one way of basically empowering yourself. Thank you, Daisy. Crazy? Yeah. So a phone empowers you because you disappear from the grid. It's not more complicated than that. You just disappear. When you disappear, you have control because you can say stuff anywhere, and you don't have to fear that they can recognize who you are. That just doesn't happen. Okay, so I've been using any number of phones that I feel are not identifiable for so many years now, that I even look at my Google records, and I'm very active in Google, obviously, because I'm on YouTube, and there's like a big hole in there. There's a big hole, and I look at my Google records, and it's like everything in there is really about the fact that there's a computer. They know that. And the IP address in my computer is always a VPN. So all they see, and you can actually check your security records, and all they see is the VPN. So that's the other thing that happens, is when you use the VPN, they're not able to pinpoint you, and so it foils browser fingerprinting and any number of other fingerprinting techniques, again, to tie my Google ID to what I do. The third thing, and so basically I'm telling you three things here, and the third thing that I do that is really important is called browser isolation. Now this is for all the newbies. You don't understand their videos on these topics. It's very simple. Now what do all these things do? You got de-Googling the phone, using a VPN, and then doing browser isolation. Browser isolation simply means, and I'm going to keep it simple for you, it means you log into Google. You can log into Google if you want. You're on YouTube, so you can do that. Those of you on YouTube, some of you are on Rumble. So if you want to be on YouTube, you can just use a different browser. Do not use anything else on that browser. Do not make that your default browser. Make something else your default browser. And go to this browser, Chrome. You should use Chrome only for Google. You should use Chrome, so you recognize it. Since Google owns Chrome, then you know when you're going to Chrome that you're going to Google. Don't go to Amazon on Chrome. Don't go to any other Facebook. Certainly don't go to Facebook. Don't go to Twitter on Chrome. Don't go to any other website on Chrome. Now, what happens when you do this? This foils the Google ID, because one of the ways that the tricks of the trade here is that the Google ID can be traced back depending on what you click on the internet, whether it be on a phone or any device. They all match Google IDs because every website has a Google ID or a Facebook ID. That's another thing. Those are the only two things to fear with tracking us all over the internet. It's a Facebook ID and a Google ID. I don't use Facebook, so I don't have to fear that, but many of you have Facebook, and you really should think about dumping that. The point is that these are the only cross-device and cross-internet threats. Google and Facebook. They're the only cross-device threats, those two. So if you foil them by saying, I'm not going to go into a different browser. If you want to combine Chrome and Facebook because you use Facebook, I suppose you could do that because you'll foil them in that one browser. Although you may want to put Facebook in a different browser, but that's not really the answer. The answer is get rid of Facebook because Facebook is so dangerous. So with these kind of steps, it's really actually very simple. You actually prevent the Google ID from leaking. And once you get rid of the Google ID, guess what? They don't know who you are anymore. They can't be certain who you are. Why do they know who you are? Because you actually log into Google. And when you log into Google on your YouTube, which obviously you're all logged into YouTube here, everyone in chat is logged into YouTube. That's fine as long as whatever you do elsewhere doesn't see that Google ID. Then they cannot draw a connection. They only see what they can see inside their own platform. The cross-device tracking disappears, and that threat, that entire threat of tracking you in the world and what you do around the internet and the world just disappears. How simple is that? Now, there's obviously other things you got to think about. This only handles, those 3 points handle only 80% of the threats. There's still 20% that you gotta think about if you want to, do it right, like I do, and I do it well. So I'm closer to 99% in my case, but for many of you, you're with these 3 things, you're already at 80%. And yeah, so you say, well, I already have data out there. It doesn't matter. When you start, the data gets stale. So do it enough years and you'll make a difference. You won't make a difference on day one, but 3-5 years from now, it will make a big difference. So you got to start somewhere. And you just stop worrying about it, and then you just institute these habits, and suddenly you feel in control. Guess what, guys? People who get the Google phone, consider like my Brax 2 phone. I have one here. So if you have a phone like this, so this is Brax 2. This is a Brax 2 phone. The Google, there's no Google in here, obviously. I've never logged into Google. And it's running Brax OS, which is a Android open source fork. Then you feel, let me just explain the empowerment here. You go to any site and there's no ability for them to snatch your Google ID. So it doesn't matter what website you go to. It doesn't matter. For example, I use Spotify on this. Okay? And somebody will say, well, but you're logging into Spotify. Then it's tracking you. Yeah, but you see, there's no cross-device or cross-app tracking because they don't know what the Google ID is. If I had a Google ID on my phone, Google will know that I went to Spotify. Google will know that I went to Amazon, Google will know that I'm running all these apps on my phone, and when I use it and every time I click on it, Google may even know what I do on each of these spots. They're almost like a key logger almost capability. That's pretty intimidating when you realize that piece of data, and the fact that when you have a de-Google phone, you stop worrying about that. So somebody would tell me, "Oh, what is this de-Google phone business? What do I have to do differently when I have a de-Google phone?" To be honest with you, nothing. It's just nothing. You can use whatever apps you want. You can do whatever you want, because what happens is you're just somebody with no identity. It doesn't matter what you do. You're just unidentified. So when you're unidentified, there's a little bit of freedom, because you can say what you want and do what you want. Now, obviously, there are other things you got to do, guys. There are other things you got to do, and that is when you're here on YouTube, you may want to not use your real name, right, Samira? You may want to think about that. Why do you have to use your real name when you don't have to? Now, YouTube does, preserve your privacy. It doesn't really have a place for you to reveal personal information, and so that's fine. But it could connect to everything else you do on Google, and yeah, you're an artist, yes. Yeah, I'm an artist too. I'm a musician, and yeah. So there are things that you can't do and you can't hide. If you're a doctor, real estate agent, lawyer, and so on, professionals with professional names, accountants, things that got to register, this and that, government officials, and so on. But you got to learn segregation. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with doing anything bad. It doesn't have anything to do with badness. It has to do with control. It has to do with somebody knowing your thoughts and your ideas and trying to influence you inappropriately. You all forget, and I made several videos that people ignored, where Google actually collects your profile, your political beliefs, and then starts attacking you by changing your Google search. And you're saying, well, they can't do that. Well, they have done that. This is factual. There's a company in London that dedicated to doing that. So that's a very big thing. So you start doing little things, change your name a little bit, little things, and you start to get beyond that 80. If you're following the other stuff I said, you start going beyond that and going further into the privacy world. And then what happens if you are in the realm where I am on privacy? You feel empowered, people. You really do. You're not afraid. You're not afraid of saying something and somebody doing things to you. They can't even influence me because my social media presence is one thing, but my normal internet presence is some other thing. So I'm not easily manipulated in that sense. I'm not easily tracked. I've very good segregation of what I do, and I feel in control. I know what not to say on this platform, but on another platform I can say whatever the zuck I want. And there's just a feeling like you're invulnerable, like you don't have to worry about any of that. If once you're unidentified, you don't have to worry. You can say whatever you feel like doing, and you do whatever you feel like doing that's legal, and you feel safe and you feel in control and you don't feel helpless. And let me tell you guys, kind of a concluding comment here, is that when you do these kinds of things that empower you, you feel good and you feel confident, and you don't feel like the world is closing in on you. You don't feel like the world is ending, and sometimes I see, my friends are always depressed every day. Oh my gosh, look what they're gonna do. They're gonna do this. They're gonna, do that, and depending on what side you're on, you start thinking about worrying about that instead of using your political clout to speak, but speak in a safe way. You can't just speak nowadays. It's not possible anymore. You have to speak safely. Okay. Anyway, let me take a short sponsor break, and then I'll continue briefly with this, and then we can discuss other things here. Okay. So, well, guess what, guys? I do have a sponsor. In fact, currently my only sponsor. And you say, "Oh my gosh, Rob Broxman is so bad that nobody wants to be to sponsor Rob Broxman because he's like awful creator." I get multiple offers of sponsorships a day. I mean, I have a little folder of it. It's like, oh my gosh. This is a big channel, so lots. I don't have a lot of views, but it's a big channel, and I get a lot of sponsors. But I'm very careful about who I pick as a sponsor because it doesn't really benefit me. Sorry, it's going out of focus here. So the main reason I stuck with Linode is because I actually believe in this company. So this company, Linode, is now Akamai Cloud Services. They haven't officially changed the name of the Linode operation yet, but it's Akamai. It's part of Akamai Cloud Services. Akamai is a huge company. You go to Microsoft, you even go to Google, and they're using Akamai. So it's the way they spread their traffic on the internet is through Akamai servers because it duplicates what they do, and they're able to spread out. So it's a huge company, but now they bought Linode, and Linode is the cloud services provider, or if you want a server, then you go to some of the providers of services like Linode, AWS, GoDaddy, and thousands of others. And I have used all of those. I've used many ISPs in the past and had many servers. I have many servers even now. And most of my footprint is on Linode. So I have a huge footprint on Linode. And yet my footprint is cheaper on Linode than it is with a fraction of servers on Amazon AWS. So, so I'm happy to say that if you want to have cloud services websites and you want to save money, this is the place to go to. So just go to Linode with /Rob Broxman, and they're going to give you $100 credit, which you can apply to your first 2 months on the Linode cost that you incur. So consider that when you're looking at cloud services. Okay. So to continue on with what I was saying, yes, there's more to do. You can't just say, I'm going to just stick to some of what Rob says and we're all done. The phone now, I mean, it wasn't a few years ago, but now the phone is definitely the most important right now. And the browser isolation is coming close to secondary immediate importance because it blunts Google completely. And then the IP address. Now there are some alternatives to the IP address problem that doesn't require you to spend money. So I'm going to tell you some of them if you're on the budget. If you don't want to pay for a VPN, we obviously have Bytes VPN, that's my product. But let's say you want to save money. In an emergency, if you're on Android, you can use Orbot. If you need to do something that you feel deserves some privacy, you can use Orbot. But for third-party attacks, meaning for third parties tracking you, including Google, they can't really do that if you're on cell service, cell data. So if you're on cell data, you actually are in a semi-VPN-like environment. And the reason for that is the IP addresses on cell data are actually shared by possibly thousands. And that is also true of Starlink. So any provider that is IPv6 coming in and then exits out IPv4 is actually aggregating your traffic on IPv4. And so it's acting like a VPN. So you don't have to spend money on that. If you're on Apple, they're using the iCloud Private Relay, which is also like a VPN. Now, unfortunately for that, Apple can track you now. So they've centralized, all iPhone activities. So that's very dangerous there. But so now you have to compare. Who do you fear? Centralization by the T-Mobiles and the Verizons, centralization by Apple, centralization by Google. Centralization is the problem here. Anytime you get centralized, somebody has control of the data. So in any case, what I'm really saying, if you want to save money and you want to minimize your threats, and you happen to be using Starlink, in Starlink you're okay. You're okay in Starlink. I have Starlink here, and I've watched, and the IPv4 actually does not reflect anything. It doesn't even show it. It's actually showing a router downstream somewhere, where it accumulates all the traffic from satellites. It goes down to that center that receives the traffic, and then routes it IPv4 on that router. So you're combined with, thousands and thousands of other people sharing that router's IP address. That's the first time that an IPv4 is seen. So that's perfect. It's even actually more protected than cell data, because there's so many. On cell data, there may be, 100 of you sharing an IP address, let's say. But on Starlink, there could be thousands of you sharing an IP address. So in a pinch, Starlink is usable in a VPN-like way, and you don't have to spend so much money if you don't want to. Okay, so that's why does my camera keep? Is it focusing on this? Trying to think what it's focusing on, because there's no object here other than me. Okay, so yeah, so there are options for some. Obviously, having a VPN router is the most is the best solution that gives you confidence. And the reason is you don't have to worry about it. You just set up the VPN router at your house with your Wi-Fi, and then your entire family uses the VPN router. And when you do that, then you don't have to worry about anybody leaking an IP address, which will leak a location, because it's a pair, IP address plus location. This is part of that 20% threat that I was talking about. So when you do this scheme of having a VPN router, then nobody in your household will be accidentally leaking this, which is IP address and location, which is another big threat. Okay, there was a brief loss of signal there, but it was very brief. So it looks like we're back. Okay. So Brax router is still, a VPN router, which a Brax router is obviously the most the best solution for home use. If you're not at home, you can be on cell data and you're fine. If you're home, you ought to be protecting that, and the best way to protect it is with a VPN router. Now, I want to talk about VPN routers, Brax routers specifically, momentarily here. Is there a difference between using ByteSpeed and a browser with private browsing? Forget that private browsing built in. That is meaningless. Forget that. Don't even think of it as existing. Use browser isolation as I discussed it. Forget about these techniques of private browsing and Facebook sandbox and all this nonsense. Forget all that. Ignore it. It's not going to protect you. It's made and discussed by people who don't actually understand the threat to browser fingerprinting. Forget it. It doesn't solve anything. If I don't talk about it, it must mean it's not something you should focus on. Why do you think I never talk about private browsing? Because it doesn't do anything. I can browser fingerprint you just as well with private browsing as without it. So what is it supposed to do? I can track your Google ID with it or without it. So it doesn't matter. Okay, so I have a product that I have not been able to sell for a year and a half now, or more, and that is the Brax router. So Brax router is basically a VPN router, or nTor router. So it's combined VPN and Tor, and I have I actually still have a few here that I haven't sold. But I haven't tried to sell it in a year and a half, which is really sad. And the reason is because there's no Raspberry Pis to be gotten. With COVID, don't know what happened, but it obliterated the stock of Raspberry Pis in the world. So nobody can buy Raspberry Pi, and if you can, they're expensive. They're very expensive. They're a fully equipped Raspberry Pi went from around $80, $90 to now like 200. So for 200, I don't need a Raspberry Pi. For 200, I can get something else. So I just came up with a solution for this. So I actually made a new Brax router software that's made for an Intel NUC, NUC. So an Intel NUC, I don't have a spare one here I can show you, but I'm using them right now, is a Intel Mini PC. And the cheapest one is the Intel NUC 7, which is a Celeron-based Intel processor. So that's probably came out, we're on NUC 12 now, so that means 5 years ago. So think of it like a 5-year-old model of the mini PC. Anyway, this model is sold for, you can get it on Amazon for $187. So approximately $200. So which is currently the current price for a Raspberry Pi. So I made a software. I just built it recently, and I'm testing it now. And I built software to make the Intel NUC into a router. Now, the features of this router are similar to those on the Raspberry Pi version. It will have Tor routing, it will have VPN routing, and it will have LoCiNet routing. So it can handle any of those three. So if you are interested in this is going to come out soon, and it will just need an Intel NUC 7 or higher. Now, I have an Intel NUC 12, which is expensive. It's $659 that I bought it for, but it's a powerful brand new computer. i7, I don't know how many cores. It's a new computer. So, and that's what I'm using right now here to do this broadcast. So it can run on that too. So I tried it on that. So on the expensive version, and I tried it on the cheap version. I didn't try it on Intel NUC 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Although it's possible to tweak that, and I can document how you tweak that. So in any case, if you are interested in this, then you will need to purchase this Intel NUC 7, and then you can download. You will be able to download the ISO file for this, and then you basically flash a USB stick. So you need a USB stick, and then you attach a monitor and keyboard to the Intel NUC, and then you install this USB stick just like you install Linux. It's basically a Linux installation. It's actually Clonezilla. It will install the full thing. And when you turn it on, it's completely done. With the default as I'll put in the manual. I've tried this now and it seems to be the best solution. So yeah. So anyway, this is going to be available soon, maybe 2 weeks from now. And I'm thinking about what else to add feature-wise to this machine since it's more powerful than Raspberry Pi. I may load SyncThing on it. You can load your own software on it. It's just running Ubuntu. So, but I can preload some of this and just put it on the USB stick, and so it's already pre-configured. So, and you actually configure the Intel NUC just with a browser. So all you do if you're on the Intel NUC is comes with Firefox built in. It comes with the Ubuntu. You click on Ubuntu and I've already got it pre-configured, so you can configure there. It's a lot easier than Raspberry Pi. Okay, and you can operate in wired mode and Wi-Fi mode, just like the Raspberry Pi version. Although this unit is a lot more reliable. The Raspberry Pi tend to overheat because it can't handle it. This one is more powerful, so it doesn't have that issue. So anyway, that's I just wanted to let you know that's in the works, and I will be able to have that ready. Unfortunately, doing these videos, there's not much time to do programming, and it's very time consuming to do this. When you only have a couple of days a week to work on it. So it's taken me a while because I got to find a couple of days every week, because the rest of the time I got to make the videos and handle this, plus whatever tech support you guys need from me. So anyway, that's going to be available soon because you can't get a Raspberry Pi, so we have an alternative. Okay, so just telling you that what kind of bandwidth it can handle. There's a limit on the bandwidth in Wi-Fi because the Intel NUC itself has a limit on the Wi-Fi that it uses. But if you install anything else onto the device, like if you attach another router, like if you have an existing router that you can put it downstream of it, and it will use 5 gigahertz or whatever you normally have. Like in my case, in my house, I have Netgear Nighthawk routers, $50 a piece, and I extend my network wired. So I have a couple of these $50 Netgear Nighthawks running 5 gigahertz, and then I funnel the traffic through the Brax router for the entire house, and then that goes through the main router out on the internet. So that's how I'm doing it right now. Okay, so and the advantage of using a VPN router is that if you have visitors, you eliminate one of the threats, which is that they identify your IP address and location on their phone. Again, it's a phone problem. So for those with phones, they go to the Weather Channel. They're so NPC. They go to the Weather Channel at your house. Say, oh, it's California. It's raining again. Oh, let me look at the weather. And then when they do that, say, can I connect to your network? And then you give them your Wi-Fi password, and then they connect to your network. And they get your IP address. If you don't have protection like a router, VPN router, and then their phone emits a location that gets then sent out on Weather Channel, and IBM sells that data, and you're stuck. It goes into a public database, and suddenly, if anyone wants to find out where your IP address is, they have the exact location, which is used to identify you. So this is one of the other threats. So that's eliminated. That's why the VPN solves a lot of that, because there's no IP address. They may have a location but no IP address. That's why that's important. But when you have a VPN router, nobody in your family has to get concerned, because no one's going to make a mistake if your entire network is using the VPN router, as my house is, and my office and everywhere I go is always using a VPN router. right? Otherwise it goes to a public database, which is a sole database. So if you go to any app, free app on your phone, and you're wondering, how do they make money? These apps are free. They're not free. They're making money off selling IP address location pairs. It's a very lucrative business, for like the Weather Channel app and things like that. I mean, that is the most well-known example, because the press got a hold of them and find out it was owned by IBM, and they admitted that they in fact are doing this, because I already told you it's being done, and getting sold to here.com, to Skyhook Wireless, and all these different companies that sell this IP address and location pair. Okay, so MVS, I signed into Google through MicroG on your... Why would you do that? Undo it. Log out of the MicroG, and then, yeah, that's all you have to do, is log out of it. But don't do that. Yeah, that is not smart. Why would you do that? On Aurora Store, you're given an option to be anonymous. Use that on MicroG. Anonymous. Do not ever put your Google ID on anything on the phone. Never put a Google ID in there. Now, let me give you an exception here. I'll tell you a solution. So you're on your phone. Let's say you're on a Brax 2 phone. And you said, "Oh, I want to go to YouTube because I really need to see this important piece." Because I'm talking to my friend. In fact, I was talking to my friend, and we're talking about the fact that during the Tonga earthquake, there was a surge, and it affected our harbor in the marina. And one of the docks broke, and this $2 million, one of them was $2 million, and the other one was probably $1 million boats too, started floating freely and was going to hit the boat in front of me. And I caught this all on video, and it was on YouTube. So I wanted to show somebody that, so I had to go to YouTube. Of course, I didn't log in. But what if you had to log in? Let's say you want to check your messages on YouTube. What if you had to log in? What do you do then? Well, let me just tell you what happens, because some of you don't know this. So when you log into Google on a browser, remember on a Google phone, you can't run any Google app, so you can't run YouTube. But you can run a browser. So you go to the browser, and you say, okay, I'm going to go to YouTube. And you'll forget about it, and chances are you're going to go to Gmail and do whatever you normally do on the browser, and you're going to forget about it completely. Now, what you didn't realize, and I'm going to tell you right now, is that there is something that was added to browsers in the last, I don't know, it's a long time ago now, maybe 7 years, and it's called a worker process. So basically, a background JavaScript. It works in the background. And when you log into Gmail launches this worker process, which means there's a JavaScript that's running in a loop inside it. So you went to your browser, you logged into Gmail, and then you forgot about it. And you say, well, I'm on a Google phone, I don't have to worry about it. Except your phone logged into Gmail, and you did not log out. So that phone is then identified through the browser. It doesn't identify the phone, just the browser. Which is still limited information, but it catches your IP address, which I don't like. Okay? Because you may make a mistake and you forget this. So the worker process, by the way, Brax.me uses this worker process to do notifications. I have a worker process sits in the background, listen for notifications. But the Google one is very dangerous, because what it does, it doesn't just work on the browser, it actually sends a signal and connects to Google basically every few seconds, forever. So what happens is that when you're on the browser and you logged into Gmail, or, well, it doesn't matter what you logged into, because YouTube is Google. Meaning if you log into Google and this worker process in the background, you can look at your security settings in Google and it'll show you what the IP address is currently of the phone as of, the last few seconds. And you said, what the heck? This isn't the Google phone. How does Google track that? And that's when I discovered that it was using the browser worker process. So just because you're on now it doesn't identify your phone, but it certainly identifies your IP address, and you don't want that. So it really did worry me, because all that happened was I logged into Gmail on my phone, and then I was testing actually. I was testing, and I forgot all about it, and I said, okay, I'm not using the browser, so no big deal. Well, that's not going to work, because the worker process continues to work in the background. The solution is to clear cookies if you connect to Google on a phone browser. Just clear cookies. It'll wipe out that process. Obviously, that happens too on desktop, but if you're doing browser isolation, you don't have to worry about that either. If you have a VPN router, you don't have to worry about that again. So these three things that I mentioned earlier, the phone, the browser isolation, and VPN or VPN router, really wipes out that complete traceability on that side. And the only thing you need to worry about is you don't have to worry about location and IP, because that gets solved by the VPN routing as well. So these three things have such a big impact. It's kind of amazing that how you're empowered by three pretty simple stuff. It's really simple. And once you're using it, you don't really have to think about it too much. The easiest one to forget is the browser isolation. So to remind me, I put favorites on my favorites bar, and I put Google stuff on the Google Chrome, YouTube, and whatever else. And then on my other browsers, I have absolutely no Google on it. But it shows me in the favorites bar, oh, this is for Amazon, this is for Braxme, this is for, whatever else I happen to be using. And so with that kind of simple strategy, then you basically make your actions with the Google ID disappear. They can't do cross-device tracking of this. So what I teach you here basically is the flaw and the limitations of their tracking. So their tracking has flaws. There are limitations, and if you pay attention to what I'm saying and you understand these limitations, it's kind of exciting, because it's like, it's like, gotcha Google. Because look at me, I'm on YouTube, and people say, how can you be a privacy guy here on YouTube? Aren't you, aren't they tracking you like every moment and all that? Yeah, they can track me to some extent. Can't help that when you have a big channel. And there are other things that you got to do, to do a more controlled protection of your entire privacy picture. I'll talk about some of them. For example, I have a corporate account. My checks are corporate. My credit cards are corporate. So that adds a layer of separation. So, you go to Google because they got to pay me for advertising, for example. It goes to a corporate account. So they're not able to follow on a personal side. It's all corporate account stuff. That's just an example of some of the things you can do. You can take that to whatever degree you need, but it's and it gets more expensive, obviously, when you start doing things like doing, corporate separation. So the camera is focusing on something, maybe the microphone. I don't know. Let me put the mic closer to me. When I raise my hands, it'll go out of focus. So anyway, that's just to give you an insight to why I don't particularly feel vulnerable with what I do, and I just follow simple rules, and I'm always careful what I say in certain environments, and in such other environments, I don't need to care. Depends on where I'm at. So yeah, so in fact, maybe the bigger fear is that I'm in public and people see me on the streets and actually know me. So the recognizability factor in the real world is more of a concern, because you know it happens more often than I'd like to admit. I mean, people do recognize me, and those are only the ones who talk to me. Uh, Certainly, some people just look at you and then they don't necessarily approach me, but there's that's the unfortunate part of being famous, and I do not want to be famous. I actually have no interest in fame. So yeah, just in life, you have a choice. Some people love fame. It's not really important to me. I had fame in even in my original career. I was traveling around the country giving speeches and all this, and suddenly said, I'm not interested in this, and I stopped doing that and basically disappeared from being public. But here, to do what I do, I have to be out in the open here, and so I am. But it's not. I don't do this for fame. That's of no interest to me. So yeah, and so appreciate it when you say hello when you see me out there, but I my preference is to live a quiet life, if it's possible. It's not that easy, in my world, because so many people out there like me and hate me, and don't care. Not to the haters. Obviously, appreciate those who follow me. How do you know of any good cyber maker spaces in the Bay? I'm not in the Bay Area. That's not my area. Not even sure I could tell you in my area here, but yeah, because I work from a boat. So yeah, my office is in a boat. Thank you, Echelon, once again. Thank you. Can you explain how you configure your home network again? Yeah, that's actually a good question. Connected to my Brax router comment. So what I do is I say to myself, the issue is that on a normal day I don't want to accidentally reveal the IP address of my DSL modem. My DSL modem IP address has not changed in 20 years. So it's readily identifiable, and I actually check the databases of the ones that I know about to see if that IP address is on there, and I've been so careful that it's not. Which is, I raised my hand so it went out of focus. So maybe I need to put my hand on the side here. So no, doesn't work. Okay. So you do have to if you protect yourself, and occasionally you make a mistake, but in general, I found that my IP address is not found anywhere, and it's not in a database. So in the databases that have sold databases of IP addresses, when you get in there, you're kind of zucked. The only solution may be to go to your ISP and see if they can change your IP address. So if they'll let you. So the typical network I want to do is have, so your first stop consider the first stop with the DSL is the modem of your of your ISP. So I'm on Spectrum. So Spectrum, the first device is the DSL modem from Spectrum. Okay, so I got one with no. I got one with no Wi-Fi. Mine is just a DSL modem only. So from the modem, then let me see. Let me just think about it. Yeah. So from the modem, I hooked up a standard router. So I happen to have some old Apple Extreme routers and Apple Airport routers, so I use those. So that basically gives you a non-VPN connection. It's a standard connection, and you spread it all over the house. So that's available. But I never give out that password to anyone that I do not know. I mean, guests and visitors cannot use that. So secondarily, I have a Brax router which connects to the DSL modem, and then so the Brax router now is where the bulk of the traffic goes through. And the Brax router operates in wired mode, so which means it's gigabit trunk. Depending on your device, it could be 10 gigabits, 100 gigabit. So mine is 100 gigabit. And then on that, then I spread the network all over the house using power lines. So I have power line adapters, so I can spread Ethernet all over the house. And then I have some Netgear Nighthawks, which are like $50 cheapo Wi-Fi adapters, Wi-Fi routers. So they're connected directly to the Brax router through a hub. So I put so again, DSL modem, Brax router, hub, and then I connect to there. So there's also a hub to connect the non-VPN routers. Now the rule is some sites may not allow you to connect via VPN. So you always have to have some non-VPN connection. Some banks don't allow it. At one point, my bank didn't allow it. A VPN, they do it. They allow it now. And my bank is not SVB, not Republic Bank, not Signature Bank. I bank at Bank of America, so I'm not affected by all this SVB business. Anyway, but you have to allow for some cases where they don't let you log in with a VPN, and so that you're never stuck. So that's why the design of the network allows you to occasionally go to the non-VPN side. But on normal use, we power up and put most of the faster internet connections on the Brax router with a wired connection. And it's not super fast because you have to go through the VPN service, and that's a shared service, so you can't hog the entire bandwidth, so you got to share with other people. So, but on a good day, you can get 120 megabits per second. On a bad day, you get 60 megabits per second. So it's a range, and but it's consistent, and it flows pretty well, and nobody in the house will ever notice that. You can watch movies and do whatever you want, and it's not really noticeable in typical household. You're not going to worry about not having enough signal. In the occasion that you need some extra bandwidth because you're downloading something big, then go outside of the VPN, and they'll give you the more a regular 150 megabits per second or whatever it is that your provider provides you. So that's my setup, and and then I don't have to think about it. I connect to my network, and it's always a VPN. And if I'm testing something that requires me not to go to a VPN, then I have that option. But 99% of the time, I'm on a VPN. And what many things that you will notice is, is a VPN really essential? For your home it is. Outside of your home, not so much. But for your home it is. This is why you're protecting the home with a Brax router. The risk is very big, because the risk is that your location will be snagged with the IP address. Once that happens, you have a terrible time trying to escape that. Because if you ever use that IP address ever again, somebody will know exactly where you live. Exactly. I'm not saying within half a mile. I'm saying exactly your exact house. Okay? So that's what those here.com and Skyhook, that's what they're selling, an exact address. So you don't want that. So that's my setup. Now, some people will say, well, I want Tor routing. If you have another router, you can set them and say, okay, I'm going to use Tor routing for that. I don't think that for privacy that you need Tor routing. Tor routing is more security. For regular privacy, it's not so important. But if you're in a high secure environment, if you deal with 3-letter agencies, stuff like that, at that level, yeah, you need a Tor router or a LoCNet router. The Brax router NUC version has LoCNet. So what are your thoughts on ChatGPT? Well, I already did a video on it. That was my last video. So ChatGPT 4 apparently, not ChatGPT 4, GPT 4 apparently has 100 times more data than, did I get that right? It's some geometric number. I don't know. I know that ChatGPT or GPT-2 pales in comparison to GPT-3, which is ChatGPT. I think it's 1,000 times more data, much more data on ChatGPT-3 than GPT-2. Now we're GPT-4, and it's some other multiple again. I forget, it's 1,000 times or 100 times more data than ChatGPT, which is already very powerful. I'm going to do a video that I will explain this, because this is a very important topic, and many of you really truly don't get this, because many of you are programmers and you don't really understand how machine learning works. And if you truly understand this thing called deep learning, which is a computer technique that is not so obvious. Deep learning is not just machine learning. Machine learning is how the computer recognizes a cat from a dog because you told it this is a cat. Deep learning is when it learns I should refigured out how to focus that. Deep learning is when it decides for itself that it's seeing cats, dogs, and so on by itself, and that's the scary part. And that's that is what ChatGPT and GPT-4 are doing. They're doing deep learning. They're actually beyond typical machine learning, and that's more scary than you think. And some of you saying garbage in, garbage out. It's you misunderstand the depth of what's happening there, and the fact that the ability for the machine to learn is pretty much limitless. Does the Brax router use IPv6? No, Brax router is IPv4 only. There is no IPv6 in the Brax router. So, anyway, that'll probably be my next video. So I'll get into deep learning, and because that's I kind of glanced over it in the last live stream, but it's such a big difference, And it's really where the fear of AI is, what can deep learning do? Because, well, to put it in mild terms, deep learning means the computer is learning by itself. Okay, so that'll be the crux of the video. Okay, deep learning is how it can learn by itself. Now you're going to wonder how it does that, and we'll find some easy way to explain it. ChatGPT is already doing a little bit of that, and on GPT-4 they wanted to do even more of that. They basically wanted to grow as you interact with it, and you say, I don't like what you're saying, GPT-4, and then you can actually teach them, and then they work from that, and and they're not human. These are machines. They don't think the way you do. You think they work that way, but they don't. It's completely, the computer decides by itself, and it doesn't really care how you think. It's just, doing it on its own. And humans interact with it and expect something to come out of that understanding. And they may understand things beyond what we even understand to be explained in the video. Let me just look at the Rumble comments here. What is the difference between search engine and a browser? A browser is a browser. What? A browser, not a search engine. A browser browses, goes to your websites. A search engine finds the website. So, yeah, search engines find content, which is a website. When you go to the website, then you're no longer in the search engine. You're already on that website. So search engines help promote websites because obviously those that come up in the top of the list because they pay Google or because Google ranks them higher, come up on the top of the list. Okay? Is AI a demon? No. AI is a machine. Just a talking machine. Unfortunately, you may lose control of the machine. So that's the danger. Yeah, it's just a machine. It can't think. It doesn't matter that it can't think the way you do. The thing is that it can emulate your thinking, and it may do things that, like judge you. It may do things that may impact you because it seems so human. But it's not human. How does Brax Router accomplish VPN? What is the endpoint? How does Brax Router accomplish VPN? It connects to Bytes VPN. We have a VPN service. Brax Router is automatically already made to work with Bytes VPN. Now you can load some other VPN on it, but Brax Router is already configured, so it's really a lot simpler to just use Bytes VPN because everything's already preloaded, including all the profiles, all the updates. You never have to update anything; it self-updates. So the Brax Router is really, really convenient because you just leave it. So, by the way a Brax Router NUC version works, although the NUC, the Intel NUC, is a mini PC, it does not need a monitor and keyboard to be used. You need it for setup. After you set it up, you can remove the keyboard and the mouse and the screen, restart it, and that's it. It just starts up and it will be automated from then on. Okay? So it works just like a Raspberry Pi in what is called headless mode, meaning no screen, no keyboard, no nothing, self-controlling. So and then you can control it remotely, because once you connect to the router, you can access the fixed IP address that is in the documentation, and then you can go access and control the router that way. You can reboot it, you can change settings remotely, and the worst case is you just unplug it and plug it back in. That's most of what you have to do. So totally, brainless operation once it's set up. But for initial setup, you do need to install the USB stick and install Ubuntu on it, which we provide on the stick. It's simple. You put the stick in, you boot the thing. You have to tap on F10 because that's what it says to change the boot order. It loads it up and hit enter a couple times. That's it, and then it works. I didn't have to do anything, and it gives you a copy of it exactly as I see it here. So that's the installation experience as you will have it. Just being straight Google is convenient. Well, I live my life with a very controlled Google environment. I mostly de-Googled. I have to run Google on YouTube, but the rest of my existence is not controlled by anything Google. I don't use Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Search. I don't use any of that. I only use YouTube. I use Gmail because Gmail is good for junk. I do use Gmail. It's good for junky stuff. I use Voice. I use Google Voice. Again, junky stuff. That's it. Very limited. I guess I use Google Earth once in a while. But otherwise, everything I use is not Google. So if you think about, using the resources of Google in such a way that it doesn't compromise your privacy, then there's no loss. I'm okay with using Gmail and all of that as long as it's used does not compromise privacy. I'm okay with using YouTube as long as it doesn't compromise my privacy. I don't want somebody tracking me and saying, I know your political side, I know your beliefs, I know everything about you. In my case, they don't. Which is fine. So you aren't really I am de-Googled in my way. I mean, you got to understand what that means. It means you control the information. They don't control you. You control the information. I have many alternative maps. Like on my phone, I have Magic Earth and Ozman. So I have two on there. So I don't have to use Google Maps. You got to get off Google. You're on YouTube. That's kind of a funny question. That's the reason I can't get off Google, is because I'm on YouTube. So that's the primary thing is, reach. If I can't reach you guys, I can't pass my message. So, yeah. So I have to be on YouTube. So I use it. I use it in a controlled manner, and it's fine. So very controlled. I do use Google things not logged in, and I have a separate browser for that. So Google sees what I do on my Chrome, but Google doesn't see what I do on my not Chrome. So I have a dedicated browser where I do Google, like YouTube. And if I don't want Google, for example, there are certain topics I do not watch on YouTube with a login. Like, I'm not going to go to my Rob Braxman account and go click on anything political or anything, with, anything that's that can use to flag you and alert you of your either political belief or some classification. So I use another browser for that without a login. I don't have any problem going to my YouTube account. I'm on YouTube here with my normal Rob Braxman account and watching a dog video. That doesn't matter. or sailing videos. I don't care. I can watch sailing videos all day on YouTube on my Rob Braxman account, since I have a sailing channel. I can probably watch any number of tech things on my Rob Braxman Tech account that I don't really need to worry about, because that's what I do. I'm a tech guy. So all of these are all consistent with that image. But if it's political, if it's a choice between should I watch some YouTube from Fox News versus some YouTube from CNN, I'm not going to go there. So I control that. Does Trump do sailing videos? I switched to Rumble. Yeah, the problem with my experience in Rumble is it does have a limited audience for me. It's only shared by Rumble on some basis. It's not regular. When they share it, then I get a lot of views, and if they don't share it, then I don't get a lot of views. And it's I don't get a lot of organic clicks on Rumble unless Rumble shares it. Now Rumble does share it, so I have almost 27,000 subscribers on Rumble now, but I don't get a lot of views on a normal day unless it's fed by Rumble. So people aren't watching subscriptions on Rumble as much, and for that reason, I'm kind of tied to YouTube. I don't get that much view count on Odysee. So on I have 89,000 followers on Odysee, but I don't get 89,000 views a week from Odysee. So there's definitely people may sign up, but they're not active on there. So the majority of traffic still happens on YouTube. So I gotta be where you guys are. Okay, but it's okay. It's okay. You can be safe in any environment if you follow my rules. Yeah. I'm just telling you, I don't have to. I'm on YouTube. Do I worry about it? Not really. Because I know what I'm telling Google. I'm comfortable with what I'm telling Google. I always stay within, fortunately, Google doesn't have, or YouTube doesn't have a rule that says you can't talk badly about Google on their terms of service. That's not on their terms of service. So, fortunately, I can say such things because, everything I talk about is 99% is anti-Google. Right? Yet you notice I don't say anything anti-YouTube, aside from the fact that they frequently censor. But I stay away from that because it's dangerous here. I can't believe YouTube has a censor. Of course they have. I've been demonetized several times by YouTube. I say certain words like CSAM, and they automatically demonetize, and it's like, what the heck? What's wrong with CSAM? No, I have not tried Starlink on my boat. Starlink, I got 2 minutes here. Starlink does not work well in Los Angeles. That's a fact. So if you're in if you're in a big city, is Starlink good for you? No, stick to your DSL. If you're not in a big city, is Starlink good for you? Likely you will benefit. If you're in a boat, yeah. If you're in a big city, no. Okay, so my Starlink is slower than my VPN router. My upload speed at night is very bad. Very bad. So, yeah. So, while it's okay during the day, at night, I'm lucky to get 20 megabits per second. I'm lucky. That's download. Upload 2 instead of 10. So you can't do a live stream on 2. Okay, so I got 1 minute here. Who's got DSL? I got DSL. Okay, I don't even want DSL. Is Inland Empire part of the Southern California zone for Starlink? It may. You may still get a lot of traffic. I don't know. I don't know how tightly the satellites are, are an issue there, but not yeah. I'm not recommending Starlink in a big city. In fact, they're raising rates, so it's going to be more expensive. Okay, so thank you for watching, guys, and hopefully you got a little bit of confidence that we know what we're doing here, and that you can protect yourselves. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Good night. Bye bye.